Game loaded.
And we are live. And let me make sure I turn off everything on my side so that I don't drop as many frames as I used to do before. I don't know if it's my internet connection or my internet providers decided that I'm using too much bandwidth or something, because we're suffering from quite a bit of drop frames for some reason.
Yeah, I've noticed my internet's been slow today. I'm not sure if that's something on my end or if it's just the websites I've been visiting.
I've been shutting down everything I can to make sure that it's not that bad. But chat, if you noticed a couple of drops, please let us know. So let's officially begin the Lessons Learned podcast. This is going to be with myself, Lessons Learned, and Chapamon, a fellow YouTuber.
Howdy.
And we're going to be talking about, or continue talking about, fandom. This time around, we're going to talk about how the industry approaches fandom and, in the worst case scenario, exploits fandom. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the news. And those news are probably going to highlight some examples of what we're talking about. This week, or so I think it was on Friday of last week, the news dropped. And you know it's a bad news when it drops on a Friday night, because they don't want anybody to know, essentially. It's the we'll only let you know if you're paying attention kind of type of news. BioWare released a press release saying that they will no longer support Mass Effect Andromeda, at least as single players, as of patch 1.10. They will continue, of course, to support multiplayer, because that's where the microtransactions are. I went ahead, and if you go to my channel, YouTube channel, Lessons Learned, that's 2 words, and declared Mass Effect dead. I just wanted to get ahead of the curve. That's just me. Want to be a pioneer. Not everybody agrees, of course, but we have been seeing signs that Mass Effect has been strangled by the red tape, mostly from EA side, for a while. Talking about that, we had the vice president of EA talk about Andromeda and send out some mixed messages, saying essentially that maybe the criticism and the jokes and the animated GIFs were a bit too harsh on Andromeda, and that maybe that's why Andromeda suffered, but also saying that it's definitely not the end of Mass Effect. Knowing everything you know about Electronic Arts and their history with studios and IP, and being a general realist, which is what a optimist calls a pessimist, or was it the other way around? Somebody calls a pessimist, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Knowing what I know, I'm banking on the fact that I think for the time being, Mass Effect is on at least life support, if not cryogenics. Other news include 2, or should I say 3 game systems selling very well. The Twitch is still selling quite a bit. The Switch. I always keep saying Twitch. It's the Switch. Although it still has that little bendy problem that if you take the board and you bend a little bit, it can stay bent. So that's a problem still with problems. The Super NES sold out as soon as it hit midnight release. I think it was on originally midnight on the UK, and then across the globe, and all of them sold out. That's a Super NES Classic. If anybody who's following the drama of the classic systems, first the NES and now the Super NES, know that they sold very quickly. Then Nintendo has been doing a limited release of them, kind of like the Disney does with their all movies and the vault and all that. And not everybody's happy, because probably a lot of those went to scalpers who will try to sell the system for a couple of $100 more. And because the Super NES Classic had an unreleased version of Star Fox in it, at least unreleased in the US, should I say outside of the UK, of Japan. A lot of people wanted to get hands on them, and the only way now you can get hands on them is that there may be another release of the Classic, or perhaps on the Virtual Nintendo Store, if it ever comes to that, and of course ROMs, which Nintendo doesn't like. Also talking about super sales in pre-orders, and we're talking about pre-orders because the machine's not out yet. It will come out this November. The Xbox One X, the Xbox with the funny name, has beaten PlayStation 4K in sales. Still, PlayStation is the global leader when it comes to overall sales of this still current generation, although I would say that with the release of the Xbox X One X, and that name is it's a bad name.
I think maybe that's why it sold out, because it's got that special Project Scorpio on it.
Yeah. And in fact, I think there's going to be a special Project Scorpio edition for some reason.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that actually sold out.
And those have been sold out. Although there are not a lot of exclusives for the current Xbox, or the new one. There's no.
I mean the Project Scorpio it sounds cool. I mean, that makes me want to own a console just because it's got the word Project Scorpio on it. But I know better. I'm not going to use it for anything. It's just going to sit there and look pretty or sad.
A little bit of column A, a little column B. Also talking about releases, Blizzard released 2 new shorts this week. And usually we don't talk about those things, but I just want to talk about it because even though I'm not much of an Overwatch player, I played it a little bit. The first one was about Junktown and Junkrat and Roadhog and their adventures to getting back into Junktown, which is apparently someplace in Australia. But the other one is about the character May, who uses ice powers, and we got to see her backstory. And dear God, is May adorable. I mean, I usually don't cry for anything. I haven't cried in years. It's a personal failing of mine. But my eyes watered when I saw it. I was like, wow, this is powerful stuff, right? Whoever made it, whoever created and wrote it, and acted it, the voice acting is spot on for May. And I believe it's the same Chinese actress as the voice in the game. They did a wonderful job. So it really made the rounds on the internet. You can still find it on YouTube on multiple places. It's called the short is called Rise and Shine. So if you want to have feelings, someone to hit in the feelings, then yeah, go ahead and watch that. What else do we have for news? There was a big case out of New York where 2 people that were being sued for copyright infringement won the case under fair use, and this was basically what's the term? It's a comment video.
I think it was someone reacting to someone
else's reaction video. Yeah, it was a reaction video, and the suit alleged that they basically stole the original material, but the New York Supreme Court, I believe, is the first court, and the names in the New York court are pretty rare. They're sort of reversed. Like the Superior Court is the first court, and then the Court of Appeals, and then you have exactly a bit of reverse. But the judge said that it was under fair use because the work done in the reaction video was transformative, and it was fair use and all that. So a victory for YouTubers, specifically when it comes to reaction videos. However, the YouTube apocalypse continues. Specifically, many YouTube channels are closing because they're not making enough revenue. It seems that either Google has decided to get ahead of the curve and basically cleanse their platform of gaming channels, at least the big ones, some of the big ones, or mid-sized ones. The truly big ones have multiple revenue sources, including Twitch. I said that right. But which probably will benefit Twitch because it will essentially become the primary gaming platform, right?
And they're starting to. They have that new beta where you can upload your own videos that you didn't actually stream on there now.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's what that's there for. It's like, oh, hey, just come on over.
Well, I think it's been a while, and I think the reason for uploading VODs, it's the idea is that you want to keep your audience, right? Like if you miss something in your channel, you can go to the VOD. You shouldn't go to YouTube to watch them. YouTube Red is still going around, so perhaps it might not be so much that they want to kill gaming in YouTube, they want YouTubers to move over to YouTube Red.
Is YouTube Red still releasing anything like any new exclusive content? Because I've only heard of YouTube Red when it launched, and that's it.
No, I haven't heard anything from them, and I do get a lot of their media and stuff like that. But I think what they want is people to sign on the YouTube Red platform. Some of the bigger YouTubers who are using Red have had considerable, bounce back in their revenue. However, YouTube Red is still not available in other places, including where I live, with Puerto Rico. Apparently, the revenue stream here doesn't justify the expansion of it. So it's weird, and I think some places in Europe as well, they don't see YouTube Red. So like, you want gamers to go over to YouTube Red, but you're not fully supporting it and pushing it aggressively enough that it would actually compete with Twitch or some other thing. So
I've seen people on YouTube or on Twitter just show like screenshots of their videos being listed as like potentially kind of restricted advertising or something. And I saw someone post to Twitter saying that their video was flagged as inappropriate, so you can't watch it. And this guy like uploads, like, his content is so family friendly when it comes to, all he does is tech reviews, lazy game reviews.
LGR,
like
I know.
Yeah, LGR. Like, he does not. I think I've never heard him swear at all, even like in his when he reviews kind of rated M games. But like, he tends to just review tech stuff, just hardware and stuff. And it's like, wait a minute, your video on like Windows 98 apps is considered inappropriate by YouTube, but my heavily censored let's play of an adult game is perfectly fine.
Well, first of all, again, it's the thing with the new media is always heavily automated, and first of all, the algorithms are secret, so they don't even tell us exactly how, sort of simplified ways of how it works, because they fear that people can sort of reverse engineer, right? Oh, this is the way you do things, and they manipulate it, right? But at the same time, also, when they make these changes, they don't communicate very well, right? It's after an outcry. It's like, oh yeah, well, and I think perhaps also it may be something that Google is gone very uncomfortable with it. It wants to get past the idea of YouTube being part of the internet, Wild West, right? They want Google wants the YouTube as to be a well-known, well-established, and brand, actually, with advertisers. That's predictable, like television, right? Why do you have television? Part of the reason you have television not only ratings but regulations, it's not simply for the common good, right? It's also because it makes advertisers know exactly what they're dealing with, right? If you want to advertise,
they're never going to advertise on something that's risque.
Or maybe they want to, but they will want to do it. They want to have more control, right? They want to be able. They don't want to be surprised when they put in a commercial for Dove soap, and then the next scene is some naked butt guy just having sex with a horse or something. It's like wow, that's not what we were going for, right? So, but it's artistic integrity.
Actually, funny thing, I watched a video from Ralph Movie Maker, and I got like an advertising for like a Tiny Tots like toys. It's all like, just because he's reviewing a kid's video, I guess like a family movie, doesn't mean that his content's going to be family friendly. Oh no, it's not. He swears a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the Channel Awesome. They do a lot of like Nostalgia Critic does a lot of things of like cartoons. The latest cartoon I saw was about the return of what was the series on Disney? DuckTales. Yeah. In fact, he retweeted one of my tweet of his posting of the channel, and I mean that's family friendly. But everybody who's seen Channel also knows that he's perfectly willing to I mean, it's cartoonish in with the violence and he talks about hell, and he talks, swearing, and he's very excitable. It's part of his, his his shtick. But clearly, that might not be for everyone. You don't want your toddler wanting that because probably your toddler wouldn't understand what's going on, right? So it's like, what the heck, right? And now that we're on the subject of advertising and sales and everything else, I think it's time to move to the main article of tonight's discussion: how and why at times the video game industry is so invested in manipulating and even times exploiting fandoms and sort of the hype culture they've created. This is a difficult subject to talk about because I think everybody feels first off, I think most people feel that they're sophisticated enough not to be manipulated, right? And saying that you can be manipulated is enough to make people feel insulted, right?
Yeah, and it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction to instantly be defensive because you don't want to be perceived as vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm too smart to fall for this trick. I'm doing this of my own volition, right?
Oh no, I've fallen for it like hook, line, and sinker before.
Yeah, yes.
Then and then afterwards, you feel used and insulted, and then you feel bad about yourself because how could I just have fallen for that? I bought into it.
And then again,
there goes my $60.
Yeah, and going back to the idea of when we're doing the diversity as well and representation, one of the things we talked about was impact, right, and influence, and that any one representation doesn't necessarily lead people to do bad things. Like, oh, I was playing GTA and I ran over a little old lady, so therefore I must get in my car and run over the first little lady I see because clearly I'm thinking that I'm going to score 100 points or something, right? It doesn't work that way. But clearly, advertising works. Otherwise, it wouldn't be one of the largest industries in the world, right? I mean, people advertise not only so that people know their product, they advertise so that people buy their product. I mean, every time I start this podcast, I go to different sites and different places and go, I'm going live with this, right? I want people to know because I want people to watch. I want people to participate. And it's part of, the business of doing this, right? Hopefully, if I have the right message and I reach the right people, they do come and watch and participate, etc. If I don't, well, it doesn't happen. I don't get views. People don't talk and chat, etc. It doesn't get that thing. So they're getting the right message and the right volume and the right places at the right people it's what advertising is about. So advertising has power.
Yeah, but then of course you end up with something like No Man's Sky that they got their message out there and they got people to buy their games, but it might have been under false pretenses.
And No Man's Sky is a good example of that on software. And we talk about the shortages of the classic NES and the Super NES. The fact that they are shortages, that's Nintendo signaling they know people want this. And they're creating artificial scarcity, right? They're saying, oh, but if we release too many of them, then it doesn't become a valuable commodity. They're manipulating that idea that it's a class, even the name, classic. Like, oh, this is something I want to have. So because it has inherent value, it kind of reminds me of the bad old days of the dark age of comic books in the 1990s.
Oh, the collector's cover, the variant covers, collectible trading cards.
Yeah, all that stuff was designed to get people excited because they thought, hey, if I buy the 5 different covers of X-Men number 45, then, in a year or 2 or 5 or 10, it's going to be very expensive. Problem was, the reason why the older comics were very expensive is that a lot of parents during the 1950s and 60s, they went into their kids' rooms, maybe the kids was older or they just got into a fight or whatever, or the kid didn't keep good care of the comics, or they went off to college or something. They came back, the comics were gone, right?
Threw them away or donated them.
Give it to somebody else, etc. They got water damage. Reason why Superman, number 1 is so expensive, not only because it's Superman, but because there's so few of them. Rarity versus artificial scarcity, right? It's history versus trying to create history, trying to create things like
Oh, yeah.
iconic things,
Like-
right?
Yeah, like I mentioned before during our chat, is Nintendo is re-releasing Pokemon Silver and Gold, the second generation of Pokemon, for the 3DS, and they're also releasing a physical copy of it, which actually is just a cardboard box with a game code in it, no actual physical copy. Because it's cheap, and people are still going to buy it for $40 or $30 or however much it's going to sell for. And two, they're exploiting their fans. They know their fans are going to buy it because you slap Pokemon on it, people will buy it.
Yeah, people
And,
people imagine they're gonna put it like you have your display back. I have a bunch of discs over there.
Actually, as a matter of fact, in my living room, I have my original Pokemon Silver, like Game Boy box. It's in display. I got yellow. I have all of them. I have all the ones that I bought originally, brand new, sitting out there. I don't need it, but that's the thing. It's people are going to those boxes aren't rare, because by the time Pokemon Silver came out, the people knew that this was a phenomenon. There were going to be collectibles. I believe I heard Laura K mention that she looked up on eBay. You can buy these really easy. If you want a Pokemon Gold or Silver box, go on eBay. You can just get the box. People are selling them. They're not rare. But Nintendo, there you go, fan.
Yeah, I mean, right now I watched something. You talk about LGR, to the his channel about old technology. I watch him through another channel called the 8-Bit Guy, and then also other channels are very similar, because I grew up with Atari 2600. I am that old. Commodore 64, Apple IIs, Amigas, Atari STs, earlier PCs like 8088s, 86s, ATs, and XTs, the 286, the 386, 46, right? I remember the original Civ. People talk about Civ 5. I played the original Civ, right? I played the original Doom. I got Doom 3 in an offer, but if I can still I tried getting Doom working on my machine, but it was like, it didn't feel the same. But I was attracted to the idea. One of the reasons why I buy a lot of games in GOG, Good Old Games, is because of that nostalgia value, right? And that's another hook, right? Nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
People get older. Pokemon, the whole aspect of a good portion of Good Old Games is based on nostalgia. Oh, you remember those gold box games from the late 80s, early 90s?
Those DOS games that you can't actually get to run anymore unless you got special software.
Hey, you give us $5, $10, $15 and you can relive your memories, right? That's not bad necessarily, but again, with Nintendo, the hype culture, the hype train, which is really what I want to get to.
Relive the memory of buying Pokemon Silver and Gold by buying this cardboard box that doesn't actually have the game in it.
Mighty Number 9 was another example of that as well, right?
The physical copies.
The whole project, crowdfund our project because maybe we are going to, and this example, it's not limited only to AAA industry. Just AAA industry is much better at it. You're going to get to relive those memories of, the old games. Mega Man X, Mega Man, all those Mega Mans. It turns out the game, the whole project became a mess, right?
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot sold extremely well and broke records, for a game that is 10, 12, 15 years old? Came out for the PlayStation 2, I think.
Yeah, I believe
PlayStation, the original PlayStation.
I think it came out in maybe 1997, 5, something like that. So it's like 20 years. I could be wrong. At least the first one.
Yeah, I actually played it on the PlayStation 1. Friends of mine. It was a lot of fun, right? I played the original Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, it was new for its time. It probably plays like crap now. I only ever played the demos in the store because I was the poor kid.
Yeah, well, I think they did spruce up the controls a little bit for the PlayStation 4, and so it didn't play as bad. Although camera control was something that was non-existent at the time. I've been playing, well, for video purposes, I've been playing stuff like KOTOR and KOTOR 2. And I was like, oh, the memories of KOTOR. I remember that opening scene. I, go back into it. And I sometimes I have it on GOG and I download it every once in a while and I play it. So there's a nostalgia. But there's also, and I wanted to get into it, was the what I call the hype train. And I come to sort of despise the hype train. Because it's things like E3, like, oh no, this is going to be the best game ever. And look, it has great graphics. And it's all about emotion. It's all about the possibilities. But if you look at all those trailers, for example, they don't give you a lot of information. In fact, there's a term for it, and you can go to Super Bunny Hop's channel. He has a perfect video on that. It's called bull shots. Bull shots, as in bull crap. Oh. Essentially, you set up a situation where you have a trailer that kind of looks great, but then you end up with a colonial marine situation, right?
Oh yeah, that was like a on rails demo or something.
Yeah, it looks great. It sounds great.
Oh yeah,
it's
I think of like the order 1864, whatever it was.
1888, I think it was that.
Yeah, that looked really interesting, like the concept. But even back then, I knew, I'm like, I've been burned before. It's like, this looks great, but I want to see more than a cinematic trailer. And that game is barely worth $20.
Yeah, it's promising features going into the internet, because part of the hype train is not simply things like E3. That's sort of the introduction. It's sort of the constant dripping of information and rumors and like that. Most of this stuff is stuff that the publishers are feeding the social media and a journalist, right? That is actually expensive, right? They're constantly generating they're researching how do you word a tweet. When do you have the project director of Dragon Age talk about the availability of romances in their story, right? Because they know there's a particular section of people who like that, or have Casey Hudson talk about the grandiose setting of Mass Effect, right? And constantly hype about that and say things like, oh, there's not going to be a boss battle a classic boss battle at the end of Mass Effect 2 or stuff like that, right? It's not simply here's a game, here's our product, go buy it. Is constantly attempting to shape and control and get the audience to be emotionally attached to the product for the purpose of pre-ordering, sight unseen, because when you pre-order, you're essentially making a commitment to a product sight unseen. It's also creating an audience that will in fact defend your product. Because one of the things that happens is that also you have people that go into fandoms, and they're professionals. They're people who their job is to go into a fandom, go to post as fandom X, Y, or Z, and they're very few. So it's not like 10% of them. It's like one person. So, and they get into the speak of the fandom, right? And they go, okay, oh well, and they highlight things, and they start, people liking a thing, so it gets X amount of likes on Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr, right? Like, oh, it has 10,000 likes, so this must be something very popular, right? They try to, if they're good at their job, they try to smooth the edges of bad publicity and stuff like that, right? There are PR people embedded in fandoms in order to control the flow of information and get the right message out, and that includes at times dropping bullet points, right? Dropping talking points. And the thing about it is that they drop a talking point, it resonates with people, say, defending a product like No Man's Sky or Andromeda or whatever, and then they just repeat it for free. And now you have 10, 15, 20 people who, anytime anybody writes anything that may seem slightly negative or critical in the negative sense of anything, they go like, oh no, but you have to consider this, and this is what happened, and then you got to blame that person, and and you never know where you got the talking point from, because once it goes out in a while, you never know who released it, and you're not going to spend the time backtracking the talking point. and it sounds reasonable. So, like, was it something that somebody actually was clever enough to come up with, or was something that they got fed?
Yeah. I think going back to No Man's Sky, we saw a lot of that. People hyping up this, taking the little bits that were dripped and just getting hyped up for it. And then when people like me or Jim Sterling would, come out and say, it's like, what are you guys getting hyped over? There's nothing here. People would come to this game's defense like, oh no, it's going to be amazing. There's going to be multiplayer. There's going to be exploration, XYZ. And then even after the game's launch and it lived up nowhere near to those expectations, those same people still came to this game's defense and be like, no, this is why this game is like this. It's supposed to be relaxing. It's supposed to be this or that. It's the nature of, again, going back to, I like this, and if you criticize it, you're attacking me because it's an extension of who I am.
It's also how, there's been a lot of talk, and of course, we're going to touch briefly on the movement, just to get it out of the way. A lot of talk about how games media being a fan-based media, right? People who love games, and we love games, so that's what we're talking about them, and other people love games, and so they talk about them as well, has had this uneasy relationship, or too close a relationship at times, with publishers, right? Taking people and sending them to close room showcases where they play the game for X amount of hours, right, under tight scrutiny of the PR people, right? Stuff like that. But now they're doing that with so-called influencers. Like the entirety of E3 this year was a bunch of Twitch, mostly Twitch personalities, invited over to hype games, right?
Yeah.
Day 9, I think, was one that came to mind because he did the PC show, right? He the PC gaming part of E3, and my share is kind of broken, so I keep going down. And and this is a problem. I mean, I'm Twitch. We're right now on Twitch. We're also on YouTube. Again, we also try to be out there. And if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I'm gonna fly you out to Las Vegas, and you're gonna have exclusive access to 10 hours of this game, right? So you can stream it or something, or you can put it on your channel." That hasn't happened yet, by the way. Yeah. Not that big, but I mean, I would be tempted. Very tempted to say yes. I mean, again, you got a question of if I were to have that audience, 1,000, 10,000, even millions of people, because it takes a certain threshold, of course. Would I want to pass up that kind of opportunity, right?
Yeah, I think I see someone like Angry Joe. He gets invited out to, where's CD Projekt Red?
Poland. He's in Poland.
Poland.
Yeah.
I think he's gotten invited out to Poland to go visit the developers over there, like during the making of Witcher.
Jesse Cox and Dodger were voices. They voiced two characters, two trolls, in The Witcher 3. Right, you have to go into it's a
Yeah,
it's a late game. It's a late game thing, and it's about jokes and fart jokes and all that. But they're there, right? They're part of the English version of the game, and they created characters.
And then of course that's nothing. I don't see anything that this similar to what happened in Mass Effect 3 and Jessica Chobot being a voice actress there.
Yeah,
game journalist.
Well,
herself.
She's more of a newsreader, right? And Jessica Chobot, but I think it's one of those things that Jessica Chobot herself is just a personality back in IGN, and now she's in the Nerdist. So she's basically a newsreader, but just perfectly fine, right? She gets invited to be the voice and face of a character in Mass Effect. I wrote a blog article a long time ago about it, about the collusion, right? The between news media and and sites like IGN, right? Because they get access. They get into,
Yeah.
they get, oh, you're making this game where we have this exclusive, that sort of thing. And to me, at the time, it felt like what EA wanted to do was to sort of pat IGN in the back, say, we got you covered, right?
Yeah, because I think back to Mass Effect Andromeda, they got the exclusive first 12 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
But I think I'm pretty sure back when the first review of Mass Effect 3 came out, I'm sure there was nowhere in the article a disclaimer saying, "Oh yeah, our colleague Jessica Chobot was in this game." Disclaimer.
Yeah, and it's those kind of things. It's like there's also the fact that we who are on this side of the screen, right? I would talk about Kingdoms of Amalur. I play. It's an old game. And if you watch that, you go to the VODs here on YouTube, and I'm talking about where I am and where you can find my stuff. Come on, I'm doing, I'm just hyping my own stuff because that's how you do it. It's like I'm going to talk about something because I did this video, just part of the routine, right? I'm not going to deny it. Somebody says, "Hey, that's what you're doing." It's like, well, that's what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it. I want people to watch my stuff, right? No, I'm not going to deny that. So going back to the subject. Talking about it, and I was constantly talking about how this game didn't get a sequel. How I love this game. How I wish people would play this game. Of course, people are not simply going to play the game for free. At least I hope so. That means that they have to buy it. They have to buy it at EA or Origin, or they have to buy it from Steam. So my idea, my recommendation of that, in many ways serves as an unpaid commercial for Electronic Arts. And it would be foolish for them not to exploit that if I would get the kind of audience that I would get. And you talked about, you got contacted by one of the makers of one of the games you reviewed because they wanted you not to keep making videos about this game because they were going to cancel this whole series.
Well, they didn't want me to... they wanted me to take down one of my parts of my Let's Play because they thought it showed too much. It might hurt sales. Unfortunately, I've actually have tried hyping that game, that particular studio's games in the past, very slightly, because I've been wanting to make a review of some of their old games. I haven't gone around to it. Once I heard that they were going to release a new game after like 6 years, I wanted to help support this game, and I try hyping it up as best I can. Unfortunately, a month after this game was released, they announced that they're gonna cancel the second part of this game, and they're shutting their doors down because unfortunately the sales weren't good enough, and they're just very much taking their ball home and going home.
Yeah,
because they're also not selling any of their old games either, and they're not selling any new copies of this game, despite the fact they mentioned that they're in debt.
And so, where do you draw the line? You mentioned, of course, having a disclaimer was always important. Being a straight shooter, saying exactly what you mean when you're, like I just said just minutes ago, saying this is what I'm doing and this is one of the reasons why I'm doing it. Barring the dog being excited over there. We talk and we hype what we want, and we try to share as sort of members of fandom as well. But there's sometimes, we talked before, it's just at times just feels too much.
Yeah,
it feels
sometimes you can talk your fandom to death, and to where instead of trying to share something that you enjoy and think someone else might enjoy as well, you actually deter them away from it, from just talking too much of it. They've heard enough, and in fact, they've heard so much they don't even want to bother with that thing anymore.
And also tying with the sort of dark side of a fandom that we tried to talk about last week, but we had technical problems, meaning I screwed up. This also engenders a sense of ownership and that very dreaded word, entitlement, over a product. because I think when you start feeding the beast, right? And it's not everyone. I mean, again, I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Each one of us is responsible for our own actions, right? No matter, somebody can try to entice you into something, but the ultimate decision comes to you. Of course, successful manipulation means that it overrides that sense of self and self control, and that's what they want. They want you to lose control, right? In some cases, but it also has a dark side in the sense that people feel when they feel manipulated and betrayed, and because they feel so invested, their reactions can be pretty bad, right? We've seen, of course, doxing. We've seen death threats. We've seen, just harassment. And I feel like, while again, the percentage of this can be laid in the doorsteps of the individuals or maybe the groups that engage in this, you cannot divorce that from the fact that the industry, especially the AAA industry, wants this sort of commitment. They want this energy, right? But the thing about this energy is that you can't control it. They want to create it, they want to harness it, and they want to control it. And when there's even the slightest misstep, or when there's being a series of missteps that fandoms have put up with over and over again, and they get tired of it, and then they feel manipulated, their reaction, they can just turn on a dime. Even if the actual straw that breaks the camel back could be just a straw, like, I don't know, some glitch or something, But it can also happen. It's like, and the people are like, oh my God, gamers are so horrible and this and that. And like, yeah, they're responsible for their own actions, but don't say that again that you didn't have any influence, right? If people reacted negatively, for example, to No Man's Sky or Andromeda or whatever, part of the reasons is that you started feeding them information hinting that you were going to do X, Y, or Z. And people wanted to believe you. They put their trust in you. And then when you could not deliver, not that you didn't want to, just simply you could not deliver, they're like, oh, well, this is game development stuff, which really you don't know anything about. And we really don't talk about much unless you go to certain conventions and you take in certain courses and talk to actual developers. You really don't know. So trust us, we could have never done this in the first place. I was like, what? Excuse me? Come on. Right? People have a right to be angry too. And now, of course, because there's a sense that the AAA industry wants to create this engagement from the get-go, they want you to pre-order or double pre-order.
Oh, yeah. My favorite is making collector's editions for new IPs that you have no idea if these are gonna, if people are actually gonna even buy this game or be into it or even develop a fandom around it.
Double pre-orders, because it's not only ordering the game but ordering the season passes.
Yeah, or actually in some cases their developers are now they're making the collector's edition, but the collector's edition doesn't include the game now, so you have to pre-order the collector's edition and the game separately. And hey, why not bump up your pre-order at that point to deluxe edition?
Mm-hmm.
And actually that's something else, another news story. We Happy Few today, they this game was kickstarted, and this week it was announced that they are going to have a publisher with Gearbox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and guess what happened as soon as that got announced? The game's been in early access for a year now for $30. That price suddenly went up to $60. There's been announcements of pre-orders and collector's editions and deluxe editions now.
Gearbox, infamous for having endless season passes for Borderlands.
Yep. And actually, yeah, they actually announced the season pass for it too.
And also infamous for Randy Pitchford, particularly the head of the studio, the publisher, because they're now both a studio and a publisher of Aliens, Colonial Marines, and also trying to get people to, what was the last battle? No, it wasn't Battlegrounds. PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is another game completely. Thank God. It was
Battleborn.
Battleborn. He got so desperate to push Battleborn that he even claimed on Twitter that he found not safe for work artwork of the characters.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, that's something I kind of like to gauge how popular something is. It's sort of my unofficial how popular your franchise is to see how much Rule 34 art I can find for it.
Oh yeah. He was saying, "Oh, please, could you please make art for us so that we can say that we're popular enough that you want to see our characters naked and or boning each other, maybe."
Which is funny because their main competitor, Overwatch, kind of discouraged that when it first came out. I was like, no, please take our in-game models and don't use them for Rule 34 art.
Which didn't work. And probably won't work for Final Fantasy 15. I'm just telling, cluing in the folks that once it comes out for PC, there will be naked mods. There was an article about that. It's like, please don't. We leave it to the morality of the players not to create nude mods. Like, oh, you never heard of Nexus mods, have you?
Yeah. So I think something else with exploiting fandom we probably should touch about, and I thought of this with the announcement of Mass Effect now being officially unsupported, is merchandising. Kind of exploring your fandom by merchandising to them. Have you I remember when, I don't see it as often now, but their Facebook page for like Mass Effect, it's like, hey, why not buy a Tally or Garrus hoodie, or buy the official N7 armor hoodie that you can zip up all the way to your hood and be covered.
Well, I don't mind that as much if, for example, if you release it like a model, if it's a bad quality model, I find that exploitative, right? Then you can sell like garbage to them, right?
I remember the Garrus one, hey, a full Garrus one, but then I saw like close-up pictures and I'm like, ugh, you guys want $250 for that?
Yeah, or asking for a lot of money for something that is clearly not worth it. That I find exploitative. Again, it's one of those things like, oh, you want to buy a hoodie, well, but that's the thing. It's like they put the hoodies in the game first. Because that was in the game, and then they said, "Oh, by the way, you can buy this hoodie." Right? I find the way they try to advertise, like, "Oh, your Commander Shepard can wear this in ship, so maybe you can wear it in real life." Where the fashion of Mass Effect doesn't really include hoodies.
Yeah,
they try to do that with Andromeda when they have the
jacket too.
Oh, the leather jacket is like, it looks cool, but it's why is this in game? Nobody in this universe uses leather jackets like that. They're bringing 1980s fashion to 2280 something or 90 something. Come on, I don't know. It just felt a little bizarre, right?
But I kind of think it's sort of like, well, we're gonna drop Mass Effect, like all support for the story, but you can find out more about what happens if you buy the comic book or the novels.
That's I think that's really more
don't you think it might? They're not saying this out loud. I'm not accusing them of saying this, but don't you think it's gonna sort of like, well, if you really care about Mass Effect, you'll buy these, and maybe we'll put out a game later, because we've totally said, hey, no, we're not. Mass Effect isn't a dead franchise. We totally want to continue this. By the way, there's going to be comic books.
Yeah, well, I think that's a thing. Like, considering how it came, the whole thing with Andromeda, how they financed it, and not financing, but the budgets and who handled it, and the fact that BioWare Montreal no longer exists because it's now part of EM Motive. Those people that didn't get fired, by the way. And there's a manipulation there. It's like, oh, well, it's not really dead, but if you really, really care about this, you will save it. You will go and buy Andromeda again, and you will do this because I want to count on the fans to really support it. As long as the fans support this, Andromeda is going to live in their hearts, right? That to me is manipulative, right? That is, especially under the circumstances that Andromeda is not a horrible game. I'm not gonna lie and say it's a horrible game. It's a perfectly functional, middle of the road. If we were gonna give okay, let me put it this way. My rating system is a dollar based system. I don't tell people 5 out of 5 or whatever. If I would ever give a rating system for an average game, I would say, okay, this game is average, ergo buy it on sale at 50% off. That would be my recommendation on Andromeda. Not worth $60, but at $30 to $40, perfectly fine. You'll have a good time, right? Under those conditions, I couldn't say, for example, but by the way, buy everything else and keep the franchise alive because they gave you a $120 game or something. Like, they didn't do that, right? They didn't do that, and they're exploiting the fandom's fears, which is rather common in gaming as well. And I think it goes all the way back when we were kids, and our parents could take our toys away and kind of still feel there. Like, if you don't support this, if you don't buy the next episode of what's the franchise, Hitman, because the last game got chopped up into episodes, we won't be making the next one because we don't have enough money to support it. Please, it's one thing for an indie developer who really has to rely on fans and people to buy the game, because otherwise they won't.
Like Team Gachimuchi-con, the developer I was talking about earlier.
Because they don't get anything, right? If it doesn't sell, they're going to go broke. And a company that made a series of decisions to strangle their own game and then turn around and say, oh, by the way, it was because people criticized this game and we're sad face, and but you can totally go and save the game if you turn around and beat up people on the internet. It's like,
we're not supporting this game anymore through patches or DLC, but I still think this game's worth buying. You should buy it. I think of what was it? Not Life is Strange. Beyond Good and Evil. That game's been notoriously its fan base has been exploited for years. It's like, hey, you guys want a Beyond Good and Evil 2? Well, buy the HD remix. We need to sell a bunch of these copies of the HD remix to show your support that you actually guys want it. Well, now we need you guys to support Rayman Legends, because if you guys really want Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are, and also it's loot boxes, loot crates are also an exploitative part of this. One of the reasons why I don't like microtransactions. They just feel wrong for me. But it's like, now it's gambling. It's not legally gambling, and therefore not technically gambling, but it is gambling, because it's like the people who really buy a lot of microtransactions on Overwatch, whatever, are people who are really invested in the game. And they're invested in the social aspects of the game. They want to have the sprays. They want to have that moment where they have the clip and they put it on YouTube or on Twitter or on Tumblr or Pinterest, whatever. It's like, hey, listen, I had this cool moment, right? This one in a time moment I was the one that did the cool thing, and I had the spray and I had the clothing, and look at my character who's pretty cool, right? It's when World Warcraft, for example, it's like, oh, I'm riding my horse and somebody would come flying by in a purple unicorn with fairy wings. Like, they spent like $50 on that, right? They had cred within the game. I didn't, because I just was just a schmuck that just played the game as is, right? I didn't go above and beyond, right? Buying the hoodie, right, that you're talking about. I could buy the game, play the game, know everything about the game, but the person who buys a hoodie and goes out in public says, I am a fan of Commander Shepard. Look, there's the N7. That's me, right? And that is, I think, it's also exploitative, especially when you add a gambling aspect to it, the randomness of it. Because it's not, if I were to say, okay, I give you $1 and you give me a skin, it's a 1-to-1 correlation. If I want the skin, I buy it. If I don't, so far. But if you tell me, well, I give you $1, I'm gonna give you a box that has a 3% chance of having a particular skin.
Yeah.
And I go and give you the money, and it comes out, it's like, oh, I got something. Oh, but if I give you another $1, then I get another box, and that didn't give me that, but I got another cool thing. But I give you another box, and
Actually, BioWare had didn't they put out a Dragon Age like mobile game that kind of uses a
Yeah,
loot box thingy
a
to make heroes?
hero based game. Basically, it's
Yeah, I can see that being very exploitive. Like, ooh, you really want Carver, don't you? He was your favorite character in Mass Effect or Dragon Age 2. It's like, oh, better luck try and get him again. Like, why don't you buy another like hero pack or whatever it is they sold?
yeah. Also, I think it used crystals or power crystals.
Yeah, because I think it's like you can only play for so long
Yeah,
unless you use up currency.
that's a trick in many mobile games. Not all of them. Was like, oh, you can only play for so much, and then you have to sort of recharge. But if you pay money, you can keep playing, right? It's like, literally, it's like if I'm using my computer and somebody from the power company came and said, hey, I know you, or my internet provider who is messing with all the drop frames I have, and it's their fault. I'm blaming them. Or Twitch, it doesn't matter. Or somebody from Twitch comes like, yeah, you want that, you want that fluctuation to go away? Give me $1. Like, okay. 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, more drop frames. Well, if you give me another $1, we're good. And on and on and on and on, right? And because I'm invested in finishing the podcast and having the people watching at home have a good experience, I'm gonna keep giving them the $1 until either I cannot give them the $1 anymore and just go like, well, channel's over, right? Podcast over. And that's the manipulation. And part of the manipulation is also setting microtransactions is make you feel like they're optional. Oh, it's only optional. You don't have to worry about anything. Just like, but are they really optional? I mean, like I said, if you want that street cred or that in-game cred, if you want that cool gun, you have to buy. Or games that use mechanics like the power crystals, like to make limit gameplay or slow down gameplay. Like a lot of people suspect that this is what's going to happen with Shadow of War, the continuation of Shadow of Mordor, right? Oh, you can buy orcs, and you can buy other things. It's like, oh, but if you don't buy them, you have to just play the game normally, which means you have to grind them to get them. And if you're really invested in winning and being successful in Shadow of War, that temptation to just give them that money in order to just get ahead and get rid of the stress of having to grind, it's there, and that is also very manipulative.
Yeah, I think on top of this, especially if you think of these microtransactions, I'm a fan of BioWare. It's supporting BioWare. Like, I can give them my money and support them directly with these microtransactions. I'm keeping the studio afloat.
Yeah,
which is probably not the case.
Even early access has an aspect of that, because in essence, it says, well, we need money now for a game that is unfinished, in the hopes that we get enough money from you guys, then we can then finish the game. There being a lot of successes from the program. Darkest Dungeon was one of the ones that comes into mind. I like Darkest Dungeon, but I didn't do I don't do early access.
No, I don't either.
I've been tempted though. I've been tempted to go with Pug because it looks like a very fun game. I was tempted with Darkest Dungeon. I've been tempted with other, but every time it's like, no, I give you money for as complete a product as you can give me. Another level of exploitation is that sort of the idea they can keep shaving off stuff. Bethesda, I like you, but you screwed me over with that ending for Fallout 3. I had to pay $10 extra to get the quote-unquote true ending, just like Capcom did. The temptation is that you can shave more and more content and have people pay more for less. And that's also manipulative because people want that. It's like they're already invested. They want it. They're engaged, as the parlance of the industry. And once you have them on the hook, they'll pay more. Pay for more characters, pay for more content. That at some point should be part of of everything. And people, some people who sort of talked about drama and other games, like, oh, the older games had glitches, and The Witcher 3 had glitches. But here's the thing about CD Projekt Red. They were very smart, and they were very upfront about it. They said, we're only going to charge you for actual content. We're not going to charge you for extra skins. We're not going to charge you for cosmetics. We're going to charge you for the game and DLCs that actually have story and gameplay on it. That seems such a very simple idea, but it really resonated with audiences. Like, oh, here is a company that is doing things, doing the bare minimum to be open and deliver, a product without any extra hidden hooks or anything like that. And people actually flocked to them. And so when there were glitches and problems and needed to be patched, people were more tolerant of those things because they felt that CD Projekt Red had been open with them and sincere with them. And I think that's kind of like the real problem is, again, people get tired of this stuff. It happens on an individual basis, perhaps. It doesn't happen all at once, but then you're like, oh, why sales are falling on this product? It's like, because, you mistreated people back in the days of the Mass Effect 3 ending, right? You underpromised when you released Titanfall. You lied about resolution and other things and did a lot of bullshots for Watch Dogs. So when Watch Dogs 2 came out, which was the good game, people were like, we're done, right? You broke that trust. Destiny, you see Destiny spots for Destiny, and they're doing it in a comedic way. Like, haha, this is funny. But they're really hitting the buttons like that for the old Destiny players, the ones that stayed, and there were a lot of them, because of the loot mill stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting that. But, oh, by the way, we're also giving you the stuff that we really didn't give you in the first game, which is story. Story. I even seen people say, well, it's. I wish that they had supported Mass Effect Andromeda DLC, because the DLC could have saved the game. And it's like, trust me, DLC doesn't save anything. Because if that was necessary for to be in the game, you shouldn't have to pay extra for it. It should have been in the game.
Yeah, it's Citadel, anyone.
And I think that's another example. Citadel DLC was, to me,
The
and I'm not
fan edition.
a fan of it,
The
was
fan DLC.
was designed to exploit the fandom, right? It was designed to split the fandom. It was designed. Basically, the decision was made. Okay, these people are loyal, and they're, at least from our point of view, easy to please. These other people are unpleasable. We can't deal with them, so we're gonna shove the people unpleasable aside, whatever. And then we're going to deal with the people that we can please. And we're going to go to the top 100 fanfics in fanfic.net or Archive of Our Own and whatever. And I have nothing against fanfic writers. We're going to collate all that and do a bunch of out-of-character moments and wrap it around a silly story about cloning and, stuff like Dungeons and Dragons or 1950s Superman comics, and throw it out there, and people are going to eat it up. But when you needed to release your next game and you needed to expand your audience, only the people that stuck with you in the last game were the people who were happy and still happy with Andromeda. Everyone else was like, we don't care.
Yeah. I remembered. One thing I will say about the DLC, it might be made cynically, but I can at least say there's a lot of heart in it. But that wasn't enough for me, especially after seeing everything, all the pre-launch stuff for Andromeda, to get me to buy a copy. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, I trusted you once, and you guys, shame on you. And you're not going to fool me twice, and I'm certainly glad I didn't buy or pre-order the game at launch.
So I think it's easy to point to the extremes either way, right? The things that are just they never rise to the point of being anything out of the ordinary on one side of the scale, and sort of things that are necessary for the system to work in a reasonable manner. They're not. They don't break. They're not unethical. And the other side of the extreme, it's the middle ground, which is a big area as always. That's the part that's very hard to navigate, especially for people like us who are, in a way, caught in the middle. No, they're not caught in. We have put ourselves in the middle. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
we are doing this for the love of the things that we love, and we're fans, and we have injected ourselves in the middle, and that means that when the waters get choppy, we have to try to navigate them the best way we can.
Exactly.
So I think we again meandered through the subject back and forth. If you want to see anything from Chapelmon, tell us where we can find you on the interwebs.
You can find me at YouTube at Chapelmon. That's my username. At Twitter, I'm not very active there, but my Twitter handle is Chapelmon_Aragon.
Mm-hmm. And you can find me here on Twitch under Lessons Learned 1, or on YouTube under Lessons Learned, and Rafa Writer on Twitter. So as always, if you like this or any video on my channel or Chapelmon's channel, let's not forget, I'm not doing this by myself. You can visit our channels and comment and subscribe. And of course, we will see you when we see you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.